Aaron Sampson here with
Ryan Schubert.
And today we're going to talk about going to the moon to find moon wizards.
Moon wizards.
Yeah, so
Yes.
if you blinked on Saturday, you probably missed the moon mission, which came up for about 2 hours.
I did, in fact, blink and miss it.
It was one of the timed events in the Destiny beta, along with some of the Iron Banner multiplayer missions. We'll get to multiplayer in a minute, but the first thing we're going to do is talk about this moon mission while we're just sort of talking about our general impressions of the Destiny beta overall.
We gave up the moon to keep the Hive away from Earth. We hope that would be enough for them. I used to look up here at night and wonder what the Hive were doing, but the only activity I could ever pick up was hazy, like it was blocked or buried.
So we're going to focus on a little bit of a constructive criticism for the Destiny beta. Overall, this game is extremely well polished graphically, and the sound, I think, is fantastic. I love the sound design and the 3D directional sound design.
Oh, yeah, and that extending to even online chat, where you could be, the people that you're playing with, when they talk over chat, like you can hear them talking behind you or to the side, and there's voice effects that like take on the shape of the room. Like if it's a big room, it'll echo, or if it's a cavern, it'll like sound like it's coming from that kind of place.
So the issue that I have with Destiny, and I think this is something that Bungie is going to have a little bit of time to work on, is I feel like underneath all of this polish, they haven't quite worked out their gameplay mechanics, enough yet. I feel like a lot of the things in this game that you see have just been done by either Borderlands or Defiance, 2 games specifically, and have been done, a little bit better than some of these mechanics that we're seeing in this game. So the first thing we're going to talk about
and
is...
just so that we're clear, that's not to say that this is done poorly.
Yeah, it's just if you're gonna go back over territory, like you just have to learn from your forebears and then improve on that formula.
That's definitely a stand on the shoulders of giants type of thing. Of, some things have just been done to a level that's so good that there's no reason to not go to that level again.
Mm-hmm. And then just take it a notch further. So the first thing that you and I were talking about mostly was the classes. We would really like to see Bungie make the classes have much more significant differences than they have in this beta.
Yeah, I mean, I want to give Bungie the benefit of the doubt and say that we can chalk this up to capping out at 8. But the thing about that was that when you create that character at the beginning, when you start the game, it teases you with the knowledge of a sort of an idea of what level 15 is going to be. And it seems like if these classes don't really come into their own until well past the level cap in the beta. And so what I'm hoping is that we just didn't get enough of a glimpse of the distinction moving forward.
So you played all 3 classes. Give me a quick breakdown of your impressions of each class and how they're different.
So that's sort of my problem, is that I had a lot of trouble differentiating the classes while I was playing them. I mean, yes, as you progress, you unlock certain very specific special abilities, but there wasn't something that separated them so much to me that I felt like, if I was going on a mission, I would think, man, I really need a diverse party because, you need somebody who can throw status effects, you need somebody who's a shooter, you need somebody who's an engineer or something. Like it didn't have a class distinction or necessity to class distinction.
And you told me you sort of came to this discovery through melee combat, right? That was one of the first things that
was the first
at?
thing. So the first thing I did was create a hunter, and I love playing, like melee combat characters in these types of games. I played Zero in Borderlands, and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to go that route. I'm going to be a hand-to-hand beast, and I'm going to carry a sniper rifle for all other circumstances. And I totally played that way and totally enjoyed it. And then a few days later, I went back, after I capped out at 8, I went back and created a Titan. And I thought, okay, I'm going to create a character that's a machine gunning, vicious, angry robot SOB. And on my first playthrough of just the very beginning of the game, I found myself running up face-to-face to enemies and attacking them with melee and not noticing that there was really any appreciable difference between that and my experience with the hunter. And I thought, okay, well, so this is also a good character for melee. And then a little while later, I'm looking at my character model and realizing that it's the exact same, almost the exact same model as Zero from Borderlands. And I thought, oh, well, maybe I got it wrong. Maybe the hunter isn't precisely that character. Maybe the Titan is, and it's just a little different. And then a couple days later, I go back and I make a warlock. And that is where I started getting confused, because all of a sudden, especially once you level up to like 3 or 4 with the warlock, your melee ability is actually more powerful than any of the other ones. And I couldn't wrap my mind around how the hunter, which I would think would be like an assassin character, the Titan, which is a soldier, how each of those would have a weaker melee than the wizard.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It feels like oftentimes Destiny is trying to ride this line between being a shooter and being an MMO. But the thing is, if you're going to be an MMO, you have to sort of live within the MMO conventions. And typically a hunter within an MMO, their powers come from rooting enemies in place, attacking them with familiars, sniping at range. I mean, that's traditionally what's associated with a hunter. And if you're not going to do that, then you have to, you have to significantly alter the hunter formula while retaining people's notion of what that identity is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're trying to say this, I don't think you have to be, like, adhere to convention so much as at least have convention.
You have to understand the convention in order to break it.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to acknowledge the convention in order to break the convention in a way that's hopefully better than what it is in the first place.
Right.
So I played as the Warlock the entire beta, and I enjoyed the class as it was really good at running in, killing things, especially with headshots with the hand cannon, dropping a lot of damage, then retreating and using armor bonuses to sort of get your vortex back up and running again. Or one of the unlocks allowed your palm strike or whatever that thing's called to basically also help recharge your vortex grenade. But again, like it felt like as a wizard, I should have been doing more. I don't feel like the vortex grenade should have been so much just like every other grenade in the game. Like, I'm a wizard, like I should be doing more magic kind of stuff.
Right.
And later on you can get the blink ability rather than the double jump. But I don't know, if you are starting off as the Warlock, it feels like they could have already had initial differences by giving you the blink to start off with, or
right.
Something to that effect. Or like maybe having their melee attack be, I don't know, like a wizard blowtorch or something.
Yes.
And as I progressed through the wizard tree, another thing I noticed was a lot of times things that I unlocked didn't seem to make any difference in my combat. So it would trade some stats, some minor stats that were either not noticeable or didn't communicate to you what they were doing. Or in the case of the vortex grenade, the scatter grenade version of it just seemed flat out less effective, so there was no reason for you to use it.
I had the exact same experience with the Hunter's grenade after upgrades to sort of a minefield. Using that in PvP was comically pointless. I mean, there were a couple of times where I nailed somebody with a grenade before they killed me, and then I just watched all of those mines track them and then, like, slightly hurt them.
So overall, I think that what Bungie should do with the classes after this beta is work very hard to differentiate them in ways that are meaningful to players. And also, maybe some of that is happening, but it's just not being communicated through the interface to the players.
I feel like you're right that there's probably a little bit more they should do, but I do, once again, want to give them the benefit of the doubt that the beta just doesn't go far enough.
I'd also like to see them, work with the classes in ways where they interplay with each other better, so their skills complement one another.
Yes.
And it's possible, like, for example, the Warlock had a Sunsinger sub-skill tree that unlocked at 15, so we're not going to see that till the full release, but it did say in that something about buffing characters, so, that's a little bit more traditional MMO-style unlocks. So let's talk about the classes in multiplayer. So there's two types of multiplayer so far in this beta. For limited times, Iron Banner was open, which allowed you to take the gear that you had with you and allowed you to use the stats that are already on that gear. And then there was regular multiplayer, which it indicated through the description just kind of evened out all the armor and gear.
Right.
So the largest thing with multiplayer was they need to rebalance the weapons a little bit. So there was pretty much no reason to not run with an assault rifle and a shotgun, because there was nothing more effective than those two weapons in multiplayer.
That was definitely my experience. I mean, I tried everything out, but the game mode and the environments just weren't, at least for me, like really conducive to anything else, other than occasionally getting heavy weapon ammo and shooting somebody with a rocket or a machine gun.
I mean, the multiplayer moon level, to me, was the most creative level that they showed because it had vehicles in it and it had reasons to use vehicles. I would have preferred if that level was a little bit larger to encourage sort of like longer sections of vehicle combat. Mm-hmm. Whereas the exact opposite to that, one of the levels that I wasn't too keen on was Shores of Time, which I thought just kind of had this Swiss cheese design. And there was no particular rhyme or reason to it. There was just people popping out of every doorway, and it was just sort of a chaotic and not really a fun, conducive team way.
Yeah, for a game that shares with Titanfall the like sort of double jump ability, and by the way, I noticed that it's different for every class.
Yeah.
And the Hunter class had the double jump most mechanically similar to Titanfall. Like if you had been playing Titanfall, the double jump would feel exactly the same.
Because the double jump for the Warlock is extremely floaty, and you actually, it feels like you lose your forward momentum.
Yeah.
Like you go up instead of forward.
Yeah,
so it's
the Warlocks float, and I think to be fair, the idea behind that is that so that you can use your special attack with more precision.
But it's detrimental to your health for sure in a regular firefight.
Oh yeah, anybody can track you and shoot you down.
There's nothing left.
Not even the light. Where's this ghost? We may want to move back.
Anyway, going back to the Hunter is the closest to Titanfall I found. But for a game that has double jump across all three classes that were presented here in the beta, I didn't feel like the map design really played into that. Like, one of the things we talk about that we love about Titanfall is that it, the freedom of movement is so liberating. And, Destiny does give you at least that sort of double jump or rocket jump type of ability, yet there weren't any, let me put it this way, the Moon and the Shores of Time maps didn't really provide very much in the way of taking advantage of that gameplay style. There's maybe a couple instances where that's not quite true of the two that showed up in Iron Banner, the two maps that we didn't see normally.
Going back real quick, the other thing I forgot to mention, why wasn't the multiplayer mode kill confirmed, particularly with the whole ghost mechanic?
I'm not even a huge fan of kill confirmed, but when you're playing multiplayer, you're right. Somebody gets killed and their ghost is left behind, and it just seems like that's an obvious thing to pick up.
You'd also mentioned, and this is something that I was thinking about too, is that the progress that you make in PvP was not significantly better, or in many cases was worse than PvE. And I think the charm of this game was largely in its PvE.
Yes.
So I had a hard time justifying spending my time in PvP.
Yeah, we should not dwell on PvP.
Okay, let's talk about just the game overall. The sort of the writing and the level design, mostly in the environments. So one of the issues that I had, and again, some of this, it's interesting because I think this ties back into not differentiating between classes enough, is not differentiating between environments enough. So, for example, this moon mission, the first time I landed on this moon and realized it had the same gravity as Earth, that immediately pulled me out of the story. It's like, it's like, hey, we just changed the skybox and some of the terrain, but you're not on the moon. You're on Earth with Earth's gravity. So, it's the same thing, like fighting the two races. Like you have the Hive, right, and you have the Fallen, but you seem to see the same guys over and over again, and all that they've changed is the numbers over their head. So I would really, really like to see in the full release of this game just a lot more enemy variety. And to their credit, we may get that. We haven't seen anything other than Russia and the moon. And the other criticism that I would have is I wouldn't mind it if they would get Peter Dinklage back in the studio with a slight rewrite of his ghost character.
Weren't too into the dialogue.
The problem with Peter Dinklage's character is it's not a character so much as just a call-out mechanic. Like, he just states what it is that you're seeing at any given time. And it's the old problem with writing. Like, you take a creative writing class, the first thing they tell you is show people, don't tell them. And all Peter Dinklage's character ever does is tell you what you're already seeing. It's already being shown to you. So, I mean, unless, his character serves as, like, help for people who are visually impaired, which is entirely possible. He's just saying, like, hey, that spaceship's flying too low to the ground. That's unusual. Hey, this bad guy just jumped out of a wall, Or, like, even some of his lines that are story-centric. For example, at the beginning of this mission, he says, we let the Hive, or we let the Fallen have the moon in hopes that they wouldn't come to Earth. And it's like, did you guys think about that line before you wrote it? You gave a spacefaring race an unmolested base on the moon within striking distance of Earth, and you're surprised they used it as a launching pad? It's just, words mean something, and the writing needs to be punched up, for sure, in this game. You want to talk briefly about weapons? Because I would love to talk about weapons. Why is it that...
We like weapons.
Yeah, we love weapons. We like more weapons than we saw in this beta, particularly because... Well, okay, so there's one thing that I think they should change. When you switch your special weapon to another special weapon, you lose all the ammo.
Yeah, I'm hoping that was just a bug. I'm assuming that's something that they're going to fix, because that was really frustrating. So,
in a game like Borderlands, they let you go free. Here's all your guns. Here's the ammo you have for all your guns. Go. And you trust the player to use the right guns at the right time. In this game, when you take away their ammo for switching, you basically are locking them into whatever their first decision was, and then punishing them for not making the right decision.
Yeah, that can't be on purpose, or that can't be something that they'll continue with in the future.
Also, we saw a very kind of stock selection of guns. So you had your assault rifle, you had your sniper rifle, you had your laser weapon, which was kind of like a long-range laser shotgun. You had your shotgun, and then you had your hand cannon. The only weapon that I really enjoyed playing with, I gotta say, was the hand cannon.
Hand cannon was pretty cool.
I felt like it was sort of a fresh take on it because it was essentially a short-range sniper rifle.
Right.
But the other weapons felt just very, very standard to me, and I would love to see those weapons punched up in ways that made them more unique.
Well, I'm definitely hoping to see more variety to the weapons in terms of, like, qualitative differences. Like, I spent a lot of time comparing stats between weapon pickups I would get, but there wasn't very much, ultimately, like, aesthetically that was different. And it wasn't until, granted, it was on my first playthrough with the Hunter, but it wasn't until really late in that playthrough that I got rewarded a pretty high-level pulse rifle. And unfortunately for me, the pulse rifle was my least favorite class. But it was different color, different shape, had an ACOG scope on it, and was clearly like a more interesting weapon than anything else I had used. And I'm hoping that was sort of like a preview of things to come, that we'll see more sort of attachments, more things that to distinguish, not just on a stat level, but like an aesthetic level and a handling level in game. In much the same way that in Borderlands, like you could look at the way a weapon physically looked, and before you even compared the stats, which you would do anyway, you could tell that it had certain things about it.
Just by looking at it on the ground.
Just looking at it on the ground. Like, even before you compared stats, which you could also do without picking up the weapon. But, like, you could tell, like, what kind of scope it had, what kind of ammo it was likely to fire. Like, you could probably tell what kind of ammo it was going to fire. You could tell what the ammo capacity might be like. You probably knew who the manufacturer was after you've been playing the game long enough. And that kind of just recognition, immediate recognition, is something I'm hoping to get out of this game.
And when you rolled over
the full release,
when you were in your inventory and you were looking at the stats of weapons in Destiny, like, what is impact? Is that damage? And it's like these things weren't very clear when you rolled over it. When you looked at the level of the weapon, the description said the level of the weapon just determines how high a level of PvE creatures you can take on, because otherwise you get that immune indicator popping up constantly. So, if impact is damage, just call it damage so that players can, really compare their rifles. So, is a level 15 rifle really better than a level 20 rifle, other than just it can take on things with higher numbers over their heads? And these are things that they need to work out in their interface and just sort of improve the visibility of these things for players so they know quickly and they can move on and keep playing the game.
Like, one of the things that I think probably stuns everybody playing this game is just that the look of it is pretty beautiful. I mean, definitely reminiscent of other games. Like, if I had to only take two games and compare it, I'd say you've got a little bit of Mass Effect and a little bit of Fallout, particularly Fallout 3. And all of it just looks so good. Like, even just being in the tower and, like, looking out at the view. I mean, I remember one time I was at the tower and I saw people going out on the little docking bays for the ships and just, like, going into their sitting stance and looking at the view. And I thought, man, you can actually do that in this game. It does look that good.
I think more than any reason after this beta I want to play this game at least one time through is largely for tourism. Again, I agree with you. I think this game's gorgeous, and I'd love to tour this game. In terms of gameplay mechanics, I'm still, I still think Borderlands 2 has an edge over this game from what we've seen so far. We'll see what Destiny brings at full release, but I look forward to at least one tourism run of this game.
I'm with you on that. I definitely want to travel around and see the sights in this game, even if I ultimately find something about it frustrating.
All right, well, thanks for joining us on this look at the secret Wizard from the Moon mission that was open for 2 hours this Saturday in the Destiny beta. Destiny beta is now over, but you can look forward to the full release of this game on September 9th. All right, thanks for watching.
Well, thanks for listening to our thoughts, and we'll see you in old Russia in another month.